Welcome to Native Voice TV. I'm Siwapili Rose Amador-Lebeau, and I'm here with my co-host, Craig Pasqua.
Hi, Rose.
Welcome, Craig. And we have a very serious show for you today. I hope you watch it all the way through because it's something that's really critical to our environment, critical to us as Native people, and you can help. So with that, I'll let Craig introduce our guest today.
Thank you, Rose. Well, today we have a really special guest. We have Val Lopez from the Amah Mutsun tribe, and welcome, Val, to the show.
Thank you very much, Craig.
Can you tell us a little bit about your tribe?
Well, our tribe is comprised of the descendants of the indigenous peoples that were taken to Mission San Juan Bautista and Santa Cruz. So we are a local tribe from this area. And we have, our people have been here for 10, 12, 15,000 years. And if you think of terms of that in terms of generations, that's 800, 900, perhaps 1,000 generations or more that our people have been here.
Val, isn't Mount Amanum part of your area from your tribe? I know a lot of people are familiar with Mount Amanum.
Yes. Mount Amanum is the place of our creation story. Okay. And it's also the place of the creation story for other Ohlone tribes as well. So we share that same story. And as you know, the Mount Amanum is visible from the valley right here where we're at today. That is a very important part of it because it was there that Creator identified our tribal territories. And then Creator gave us the responsibility to take care of Mother Earth and all living things. And our people worked very hard to fulfill that sacred covenant.
But right now, something's brewing on the horizon, and I believe that is a Sergeant Ranch development that's encroaching upon your tribal homeland?
Correct.
And could you tell me a little bit about that project?
Mm-hmm.
Or what?
Well, let me first say where Sergeant Ranch is. Sergeant Ranch is at the southern end of Santa Clara County in the southern part of Gilroy. And it is where the 101 and 129 meet. Mm-hmm. So that right there would be on the northwest quarter of that intersection. And that place is known to our people as Uristock. And Uristock translates to the place of the big head. And our big head ceremonies were the most important to our tribe. The highest spirituality, and people would come from hundreds and hundreds of miles away. We heard that people would come from Yosemite and north of San Francisco Bay, and many of the Chumash tribe would come up, and the Selenians, etc. And they would come to Uristock for prayer and ceremony. So currently today, what has happened, well, first of all, let me just talk a little bit more about that. When the missions came, our people were removed from those areas and taken to Mission San Juan Bautista. And then when the missions closed, our people went back to Uristock, hoping to be able to restore and return to the world that they knew. Of course, that was not allowed to happen. And they were permanently removed in 1862 by force, following a smallpox epidemic. They were removed. And our people have not been to Uristock since that time.
Can you explain to our audience the impact of the missions and what they really represented?
Yes, and thank you for that question. Mm-hmm. It's important to understand that history, to understand who we are today and what we've been through. A lot of people think that those missions came to California to evangelize in the name of Jesus Christ, but nothing could be further. The missions came here to fulfill the papal bulls that were issued by the Pope, by Pope Alexander VI in 1453, and there was a total of 4 papal bulls issued by the popes over the next 50 years. And those papal bulls said that all indigenous people are heathens, pagans, and savages, that indigenous people have no soul. And that's a very important factor, because if you have no soul, that means you're not a human being. And so if you're not a human being, they can enslave you, they can torture you, they can rape you, they can kill you, they can do whatever they want to you, and it's not a sin. because it is because you do not have a soul. The people bulls also said that we were the enemies of Christ, that we were to be put into perpetual slavery, and that our property and our possessions were to be taken from us. And that's exactly what happened. So when the missions came to California, they did not come to evangelize in the name of Jesus Christ. They came to fulfill the directives of those papal bulls. And there was slavery, there was genocide, there was rape, there was forced conversion. Either you converted or you would die. You had to convert to be citizens of Spain, and you had to convert to the Catholic religion. And that's what the missions came to be here. Well, now, during the mission times, over 150,000 Indians died. There's lower numbers than that, but that is the number that our tribe believes died during the mission times. And there was genocide. They tried to break the culture passing from one generation to the next. And that's recognized by the United Nations as a form of genocide. So there was many atrocities during the mission period of time. When the missions were closing, the last Padre Presidente, Mariano Payeras, said that we must find a way to explain what has happened here. All we have done was baptize, administer some sacraments, and kill the Indians, and bury the Indians. There's no Indians left, and the church was going to be judged harshly and was scorned. And that's when the church came up with the explanation that the Indians came in voluntarily. The Indians came to find a better life, to learn agriculture, and the Indians came to find God. And that's why they went to the missions. But those were all lies, and those lies are being exposed today.
And they had the Indians build the missions, right, as slaves?
Absolutely, yeah, no, that was slavery, absolute slavery. The Indians were the beast of burdens. They had horses in those days, but the horses were used for the soldiers and by the soldiers only. And like to carry all those lumber, those big redwood trees, once they cut them, they had to carry them down to that location. It was the Indians that was carried, they had to carry those trees, as I said, as beasts of burden. Mission records show that all the boys over the age of 10 had hernias. That's what one of the explorers from France wrote, that all boys over 10 had hernias. That's
just an incredulous story, especially about the Indians trying to learn how to grow food. I mean, if you existed here for 15,000 years, surely you had food from somewhere, and you've known how to harvest, the crops and your own food.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We were not hunters and gatherers. That's a real misnomer. That is an insulting misnomer. Our people actively managed the resources, the food resources, the basketry resources, the crafting resources, the medicine resources. Our people actively managed them. We identified our plants, and then we grew them in patches. With that patch would expand and expand to meet the growing populations of all the plants and the animals and the birds. When those early explorers came to California, they looked at the land and they said it was magnificent. It was a park-like setting. It was a mosaic of different colors and different plants and stuff like that. And of course, they thought it was just a miracle of God and something that happened naturally and randomly. They did not recognize that our people were actively stewarding and managing them so that those will help us fulfill our obligation to take care of Mother Earth and all living things, meaning the plants, the animals, the birds, etc.
I had heard that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that like when you go to those missions, you see these graves, like in San Juan Bautista, and it says the Indians are buried here, but the mass graves. But that was only the ones they baptized. The ones they didn't baptize were, I guess, buried wherever or not buried. But those were, and they put them in a mass grave, and those were the ones that they baptized.
That is absolutely true.
Okay.
Only the baptized Indians were buried there, and they were buried in a mass grave. Now, it's interesting, in San Juan Bautista, I forget the number that they advertised. It says 3,000 and some are buried in that very tiny cemetery in the back. But in 1823, the superiors in Mexico City, they sent out these, and they call them interrogarios, which are surveys or questionnaires, to all the missions. And one of the questions they asked is, how many Indians died in your mission since it opened? And in San Juan Bautista, from the years 1897 when it opened to 1823, the time the in Tedegario was completed, 19,421 Indians died at San Juan Bautista. And that's disgraceful. The death rate at these missions was just horrendous. And that's the number that was reported by the church. And sadly, that San Juan Bautista mission continued to operate for another 10 years. So how many died during that additional 10-year period?
So there is a written record of the Indians that perished, at the behest of the missions. Right? And have you been able to get a hold of that record?
We do have the mission records. We do have the mission records. And so we have the information that was recorded, But those mission records, there's a lot of things that are not included. A good example is that whenever the Indians would come to the missions, they would separate the men from the women, from the children, because they didn't want that culture passing to the next generation. But then at the same time, the man and the woman, the husband and wife, can only get back together if they agree to become citizens of Spain and they agree to convert to Catholicism. If they didn't do that in a convincing way, they can never be back together again. And so as a result of that, though, they put the women in a separate place, a separate barracks. I think they called it a mojaria. But the soldiers, when they came, they didn't bring their families. They didn't bring their wives or their girlfriends or female companionship or anything like that. And so night after night, they would go in there and continuously and repeatedly rape the women. When you look at the mission records, at the birth records, it says father unknown, father unknown, father unknown, time after time. That's because those babies were being born as a result of rape. So, and then the other thing that's not recorded in those records are all of the massacres that occurred. At times the Indians would be coming back, and if they refused to go any further, they would just kill them, spread the remains, and go back to the church. There's a very good example of that, of the tribe that was in Newman, California, which is north of Los Banos. Over 200 women and children were being marched back to the mission. And then once they reached the summit of the Diablo Range, they refused to go any further. And the commander, after a number of days of trying to whip them and drag them and force them to continue their march, he said, kill them all and spread their remains. And the remains were spread. And when they got back to the church, the priests swore them to silence. And they were sworn to silence and they could not tell. There was one soldier who told this story in 1841, and that massacre of over 200 women and children is documented. And there was many of those.
Isn't that an insult that the state of California requires these kids to make missions and glamorize them as part of their curriculum?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. No, they want to honor and glorify and that mission period and stuff like that. I said that when the missions were closing, they said that they wanted to create an alibi or an excuse for what happened, and they said the Indians came in to find God and all these other reasons. But whenever they're developing the school curriculum, who did they go to learn about the mission history? I can tell you one thing, they didn't come and talk to the Amah Mutsun tribe. They go talk to the church and the Franciscan priests, etc. And they were only too happy to tell them that alibi and that excuse about treatment of the Indians at the missions. And that lie has been perpetuated generation after generation after generation, and even to this day. And the state of California, people actually profit off of that lie. Here in California, these missions are huge places for tourism, and the church makes a lot of money off of that tourism industry. They'll charge $10, $12 to go walk through the mission and learn about the mission life. But yet it says nothing about the truth of the Indians. Many times our history, the Indian history and ties to that mission are completely ignored, or they're just told falsely. And then, and then not only is the church making it, the state of California is making a lot of money off of it, because they have their missions there, and they advertise widely about come to California, visit California, come to our beaches, come to our missions, come to our mountains. They're using that mission to drive tourism and tourism dollars to California. But yet, all those missions represent are the destruction and the domination of 150,000 Indians and the loss of our culture, our spirituality, our environments, our humanity, etc. And it is just shameful and disgraceful for the state of California, the church, etc., to perpetuate those lies. And our tribe today is working hard to have the truth told about our history.
Good. We have to get that taken out of the schools.
Absolutely.
And then you have your mission bells, but go ahead.
Yeah, not to mention that the craft stores are profiting from, telling that mission, because the kids have to make a mission in their 5th grade, I believe. But getting to that, the state today is honoring these missions with this bell, the mission bell. You see all along the El Camino Real. And I understand your tribe has been very involved in removing some of these bells that mark the trail of the Padres as they established the missions. That's
true. Yeah, those are the mission bells of the El Camino Real, and they, and to us, they represent that destruction and domination of our people. And again, they're just putting up a symbol of to honor to honor the perpetrators in the destruction of us. And they did it again for money. It was whenever the automobile came out, the California Automobile Association, I think it was the initial ones that put out those mission bells as a way to drive people to buy more cars, to drive to California. It was all for the tourism industry.
Always. Talk about destruction. What is going on with this quarry? Tell us about the quarry. We have about 10 minutes and we want to cover it.
Well, thank you. Well, currently, there's a proposal by an investment group they apply for a permit to allow them to do sand and gravel mining at Mutsun, and they want to remove 4 of our most sacred mountains of the Amah Mutsun tribe. They want to remove 4 sacred mountains and turn it into a big pit in the ground. They want to mine sand and gravel out of that pit. And mining is a very dirty business. It will create a lot of pollution. It will create havoc in the Pajaro River. The Pajaro River was recognized as one of the most polluted rivers in America just 5 years ago, and they were spending a lot of money to clean it up. And now they want to, and now they're considering approving another mine that would just do the same amount of destruction, if not more, at the river's worst point in time. So we can't understand that. Plus, Mutsun is at the very south end of the Santa Cruz Mountains. The next mountain range to the south is the Gabalan Range. And so because of that, this is a very important wildlife corridor. And that sand and gravel allows water to percolate down into the underground to be stored in the underground storage. And that feeds the springs during the summer months and throughout the year. And that's very important for wildlife. And so there's a very important habitat there and a way for the wildlife to survive. But by taking away that sand and gravel, what's going to happen when it's rained, the water's not going to be stored. It's going to just rush right out to sea through the ocean, and it'll be gone forever. So, I mean, just the environmental, if you look at the cultural, the spiritual, and the environmental damage here, it is going to just be devastating.
So what's the tribe doing to stop this development?
We have a very active campaign, and that's why I'm most grateful to Native Voice TV today to give us a chance to talk about this. Native American spirituality of unrecognized tribes is not protected by law. Our law, whenever the government in 1884 and then in 1892, they made the law even stronger that outlawed all Native American spirituality. And then in 1978, President Carter passed the Native American Freedom of Religious Act in 1978. And that allowed but that only applied to recognized tribes. And it allowed the recognized tribes to have protections under the law for their spiritual and religious practices. But recognized tribes are left out of that. Today, spiritual practice is not recognized by any law, state, federal, or county or city laws at all. And so there's no protection by law. So the only thing that can stop this mine from being approved, and this is what we're told by many people, is public support to oppose the mine. And that's why we're here asking the public to please recognize that Native American spirituality is on par to the Catholic spirituality, to the Jewish, to the Muslim, to the Buddhist, to all faiths. It's equal to that, and it must be protected. Who would ever think of doing mining, doing any kind of mining operation at the Vatican or at Mecca or at Salt
the
Lake
missions.
City at the temple, or even at the missions? I'm glad you said that. I hadn't thought of that one. Yeah, they wouldn't think of doing it at the missions, but yet they're willing to do it here.
Right, right.
That's a beautiful statement.
That's horrible, because like I'm from Pennsylvania, and my grandfather worked in a cement factory. Everybody had that in their lungs, and it polluted the communities, and it's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to be in the ground, it's going to be in the air, it's going to be in the environment.
Absolutely. And they're saying, and they believe that they can control it, like with the rivers and the water, and they say it's going to require this much water to wash it and to clean it and to keep the dust down and stuff like that. But it's going
Heard that before.
But yeah, what they're estimating at is probably 1/10 of what will be required.
So, if you were a recognized tribe, would this be a different scenario? Could you be able to fight it?
I always believed that, but after Standing Rock, I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
You look at what happened at Standing Rock. I mean, they recognized
very
tribe.
similar. It's the same scenario.
We believe so. I mean, a recent paper in the San Jose Mercury, wasn't it the San Jose Mercury? They called this what was the term they used? They called this the local Standing Rock.
It is. And the Standing Rock tribe told them it's going to leak, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Oh no, none of that's going to happen. It happened.
Absolutely.
It happened already.
Yes.
And the fact of not being recognized because someone says, oh, they're extinct, all of a sudden you're not recognized. That's ridiculous. I mean, I see you, you're here. Obviously you're not extinct.
Well, what we say is the destruction and domination of Native American tribes never ended. It just evolved.
Yes.
And it evolved to these immoral laws and rules and policies and regulations that continue to whittle away at our spirituality, at our environments, at our culture, and at our people, And when is enough enough? Haven't we given enough? They need more. They give more. And what we're saying now is there's not going to be any more free rides. We are going to fight for the protections of our land and our sites.
You have a website that we're putting on the screen here. People can log in, read about what's going on. You can petition, you can email your Board of Supervisors if you live in Santa Clara County. All of the supervisors need to know what's going on, not just South County. If you live in Santa Clara County, be sure and write your supervisor, call your supervisor. If there's activities, rallies, marches, whatever, participate. This is a way that you, the community, can help, not just for the tribe, but for all of us, for the environment.
Exactly. As Californians, California is an environmental place, beautiful place to live. In fact, this is one of the most beautiful places, your tribal homeland is one of the most beautiful places there are, I believe, in the United States. And if we don't protect that beauty and the environment, the water, the ground, then it's going to go away. And just like our tribal rights or our culture. And so we have to make a stand. And is there anything coming up that we can get involved in to help you with this fight?
Well, signing the petition is first, and there's a place there to check a box to keep up to date on what we're doing. And so as we have gatherings, as we have prayer walks, as public meetings are called, and we would like people to show up, checking that box on the petition will get you notifications. That's real important. I know that on September 8th we have a walk. It's going to be from the Mission San Juan Bautista to a place called Bedabal, about 5 miles away, and it's at the very base of the Eurostock Mountains. And so we're asking people to put that on their calendars September 8th. And then we're looking at a date at the end of August to hold a rally at the county buildings and stuff like that. And that date's going to be announced soon. A good way to be aware of it is to pay attention to Native Voice. I'm sure that you'll be announcing that. Thank
Absolutely.
you for that. And then also to sign the petition so that we can send you notifications. Also, if you have belong to organizations, your church, your communities and stuff like that, you have organizations, have the organizations send letters on behalf of the organization to let them know that that there's wide support for opposing this mining permit.
That's wonderful. That's a lot of resources you're giving us, Val.
Thank you for being here, Val.
Thank you very much for informing everyone and our audience of the injustice that's going on now. And again, this has been Native Voice TV, our special guest, Val Lopez, chairman of the Amah Mutsun tribe. And thank you for watching Native Voice. Watch us on.
Please sign that petition. We're on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. We'll let you know when the marches are, when the rallies are, and especially when this issue goes to the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. We want you to be there with us and pack the place. Thanks for joining us.